Good evening. It's a really cool design. Ohio State. They make a lot of really neat ones. I hate getting up here. Makes me a nervous wreck. I don't like it. It's out of my comfort zone. But to take this thing off for 50 minutes while you guys have to leave them on, I'm sorry. I'm not jealous of you guys at all right now. It's still hotter up here, though. I want to do something real quick. I counted before I got up here. I counted 29 people, and I was hoping to have more. I was expecting to have more for this part here. John, I assume we're recording. We're good. Everyone's gonna have to be loud, okay? But for everyone at home, we miss you. We really do. I can't wait until something happens and we can all be back together. It's crazy. We were just talking today that a year ago we would have never dreamed that, you'd have to go to a restaurant and to get from your table to the door, you had to put your mask back on to leave. And it's just wild to think about. And like I say, to everyone at home, we miss all you guys, and I just want everyone here to just, real quick, on the count of three, just give everyone at home your heartfelt good evening to all them. So, 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure if anyone's going to be able to hear that, but I can attest that it was playing loud enough, and we do all miss you, and we can't wait till we can all get back together. And something that this is going to teach us, that when this all is over with, and we can once again fill this auditorium with everyone that can't make it and that doesn't feel comfortable coming out, and we don't look down on anybody who feels that way. We're glad that you're joining in online and still studying and still believing in God. What a wonderful way it's going to be to rejoice with everyone and to look forward to what we have coming in heaven if we're just faithful and we can meet folks and relatives that we have never been fortunate enough to meet. And it's just as bad as times are, we can take something positive out of it, and I think we just need to do that. So I got 3 chapters tonight. I got Proverbs 25 through 27. I was telling my grandma before I come up here this evening, it's a lot to get through. I'm going to go through verse by verse. Everyone's kind of attacked it a little bit differently. Harry did this about 3 weeks to a month ago, did it verse by verse. Told my parents whenever we left, I said, I really liked how he did it. I liked how he went through verse by verse. We got it all. I said, I think Harry's the only person on the face of the earth that could do that and that could get through it this fast. But I was wrong because John Forshee did it a week later, and I certainly don't think I'm going to give justice to those two, but we're going to try this evening. So we're going to go rather quickly. I hope we can get something from it, but we're going to get started here. So Proverbs 25, starting in verse 1. These also are the Proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, copied. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings is to search out a matter. All right, so looking at that second verse, just a quick explanation. So a king has the privilege to find out whatever there is to find out. He's got the resources, he's got the money, he's got the power that no matter what's going on in the nation, he's going to be able to find it out. And that's his glory, is to have that power and be able to find everything out. But God's glory is to conceal a matter because he doesn't need to search things out. He already knows everything. Going on to verse 3, as the heavens for height and the earth for depth, so the heart of kings is unsearchable. So just as we cannot understand the height of heaven or the depths of the earth, we cannot understand what's going on in the king's mind. Moving on to verses 4 and 5. Take away the dross from silver, and it will go to the silversmith for jewelry. Take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne will be established in righteousness. So what these verses are kind of depicting here, impurities have to be removed from silver before it can be made into beautiful jewelry. Just like the wicked men have to be removed from government if we want to have a righteous nation. I wish our government, we had righteous men that would step up as leaders, and that we had better choices than we do, but that's neither here nor there. Verses 6 and 7. Do not exalt yourself in the presence of the king, and do not stand in the place of the great. For it is better that he say to you, come up here, than that you should be put lower in the presence of the prince, whom your eyes have seen. So, I want to turn to Luke chapter 14, verses 8 through 11, a parable that Jesus taught. You guys don't have to turn there. You can if you want, but I have it bookmarked, so I'm just going to read it real quick. When you are invited by anyone to a wedding feast, do not sit down in the best place, lest one more honorable than you be invited by him. And he who invited you and him come to you and say, give place to this man, and then you begin with shame to take the lowest place. But when you're invited, go and sit down in the lowest place, so that when he who invited you comes, he may say to you, friend, go up higher. Then you will have glory in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. So this has, many applications, in a feast setting, or before the king, or in our daily lives. Let us all be humble. Let us all tell someone else, or someone else tell us. Someone else tell us. No, you need to come up here. You're important. Don't let any of us think that that we're important. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, it seems that nearly everyone thinks that the world revolves around them. I see it from. I'm not saying there isn't situations, but I see 20-some-year-olds park in the fire lane at Walmart and go inside and get their stuff completely healthy. I understand if it's someone that needs to, but completely healthy people and be sitting there, and you see their car, and it makes you want to wait on them and say, I'm honored to meet the person the world revolves around and stuff. So try to be humble. Try to not look at yourself like the world often does, and the looking out for number one mentality that's so common nowadays. Let's see. I'm looking at the clock here, by the way, so I'm going to skip my illustration that I had. Okay, verses 8 through 10. Do not go hastily to court, for what will you do in the end when your neighbor has put you to shame? Debate your case with your neighbor, and do not disclose the secret to another, lest he who hears it expose your shame, and your reputation be ruined. So just here, think before you speak. Don't go to court as a first resort. Don't get other people involved as a first resort. Talk with your neighbor one-on-one and try to figure things out, because there's things that you can get taken care of, one-on-one a lot easier than if someone else gets involved. And I've seen this, in my life. I know a couple parties, and I'm not going to mention names, but I know a couple parties that had a little strife at one time, and no one that anyone probably even knows here. Nothing to do with this congregation or any congregation for that matter. But had some strife amongst each other. Honestly think that both of them are old enough and mature enough that one-on-one they could figure things out and all be friends again and all the strife be gone. But unfortunately, it seems that everyone else involved has taken one side or the other and wants to cause friction, and unfortunately for those two individuals, I don't think they'll ever be able to get along, because other people have got involved. So if you can take care of things on your own, do it, lest your reputation be ruined. So you know, don't be known as someone who can't, someone who's going to go and try to cause strife or whatnot. So moving on to verse 11 and 12. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. Like an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold is a wise rebuker to an obedient ear. So, what I have written down here, timely advice is a beautiful thing, okay? And being willing to criticize someone when necessary is a beautiful thing. Willingness of that party to accept criticism when they need to should be worn as this golden earring, as a badge of honor. Very honorable for someone who none of us want to be told that we're wrong, but if we need to be, understand where that person's coming from, take the advice, and become a better person because of it. Verse 13, like the cold of snow in the time of harvest is a faithful messenger to those who send him, for he refreshes the soul of his master. So they're not talking about a snowstorm here. That's what I first thought when I read this, and I thought, well, snow in the time of harvest, that would be horrible. You know, it'd ruin your crop and everything. But the commentary I read said to think of this as a cold, refreshing drink for the harvest workers. So getting what we would call an icy or a snow cone or something in the hot heat. That's what a faithful employee, that's how he's going to refresh his employer, or his master in this case. Verse 14, whoever falsely boasts of giving is like clouds and wind without rain. Verse 15, by long forbearance a ruler is persuaded, and a gentle tongue breaks a bone. So what I have written down here is real simple for that verse. Just the old phrase, kill them with kindness. Be gentle. Don't go to someone with anger. That's really probably not going to convince anybody. But if you're kind and meek-hearted, that's the best way to be and the way to persuade someone. Verse 16, have you found honey? Eat only as much as you need, lest you be filled with it and vomit. 17, seldom set foot in your neighbor's house, lest he become weary of you and hate you. I got a buddy who has a neighbor. Every time my buddy is outside, however, what I was getting at, every time my buddy is outside, the neighbor finds himself outside and finds himself over at the buddy's house and telling him how this tree needs trimmed and his yard needs mowed, and the list goes on and on. You need a political sign in your yard was one of them that he was told. So don't wear out your welcome, I guess is what this verse is getting at. Verse 18, a man who bears false witness against his neighbor is like a club, a sword, and a sharp arrow. Okay, so telling lies about someone is as harmful as striking them with a club, sword, or sharp arrow. The old saying, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt me. Not true. So it'd be nice if it was, but words can be more harmful than sticks and stones. Okay, verse 19, confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a bad tooth and a foot out of joint. Verse 20, like one who takes away a garment in cold weather, and like vinegar on soda is one that sings songs to a heavy heart. Okay, so I wrote down here, know the amount of sorrow someone has. Know your audience. If someone's mourning the loss of a loved one or something really horrible, even if it may not be to you, if something really horrible has happened to this person, and it's saying here, empathize with them, sympathize with them. There's certain times where someone is lifted up. The kicker misses a game-winning field goal, lift that person up, okay? Someone loses a loved one or what have you, don't go over and jump on the piano and say, come on, let's sing a song. This will make you happy. Empathize with that person and understand what they need. 21 and 22. If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. For so you will heap coals of fire on his head, and the Lord will reward you. So in this way, you're not setting the person on fire, okay? You're heaping coals on his head, and in that way, you're loving your enemy despite the quarrels that you may have, the opinion that they may have of you or whatever. You love them, you give them what they need, and you're going to melt them with kindness, okay? Going back to like verse 15 was saying, killing them with kindness, okay? And then the Lord will reward you for doing these things. So be the bigger person. 23, the north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue and angry countenance. It is better to dwell in a corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious woman. So, read the commentary, and the contentious woman here was translated as a nagging woman. Okay, someone who's never satisfied, no matter what. I think this can go for as men too. But anyway, someone who's never satisfied, never happy with their significant other, I guess you would say. And the commentary actually said, and I thought this was kind of good, so I'm gonna repeat it. It said about being a nagging woman in this case. It says, women, do not do it. Girls, do not develop it. Boys, don't marry it. And married men who are married in that type of a relationship, it says you have a problem. So, take that for what it's worth. But I thought it was worth repeating. I kind of liked it. So we'll move on before I get tomatoes thrown at me or something. Which is good. I got several. I got Greg and Roger here real close, but I've got several empty pews, so you guys have to have pretty good aim. Verse 25, as cold water to a weary soul, so is good news from a far country. 26, a righteous man who falters before the wicked is like a murky spring and a polluted well. Okay, so what's a righteous man? A clean spring. That's not what our verse says, but a righteous man, a clean spring, and a clean well have in common. Okay, they're all good things. They're all good things that can help. They're all good things that can purify others. But this righteous man who falters before the wicked is like a murky spring or a polluted well. So what's going on here is we have a righteous man, wants something that was good for somebody, falters in front of the wicked. He all of a sudden becomes as bad as a well that's polluted or a murky spring. You're not going to want to drink out of, say, the wastewater treatment plant tank like you may the water treatment plant tank. So that's how I looked at that. Verse 27 is not good to eat much honey, so to seek one's glory is not glory. We're going to talk about this more in chapter 27, so I'm going to continue. Whoever has no rule over his own spirit is like a city broken down without walls. So here I put down a person who lacks self-control is as defenseless against temptation as a city with no walls is against an attack. So, the cities of this time had walls around them. That city, if the walls are torn down, can't defend, they could have an attack coming from 360 degrees rather than just having to watch the gates. So a person without self-control is as defenseless against temptation as that city is against an attack. And as fast as I thought I talked, we are not on schedule. Chapter 26. As snow in summer and rain in harvest, so honor is not fitting for a fool. So here I wrote, honoring a fool doesn't go together any better than snow in summer or rain in harvest. Verse 2, like a flitting sparrow, like a flying swallow, so a curse without cause shall not alight. I'm going to skip that one. Verses 3 through 12, I grouped them together. It speaks of fools. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the fool's back. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest you also be like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. So what should we do? Should we not answer a fool according to his folly, like verse 4 says, or should we answer a fool according to his folly, like verse 5 says? These verses seem to, read at first, totally contradict each other. All right, so what are we supposed to do? Verse 4, you have a fool who is questioning you, okay, being foolish. Don't lower yourself to that person's level, okay? Take the higher road. Do like Jesus did when tempted by Satan, okay? However, verse 5, answer a fool according to his folly. You have someone who's simply trying to stumble you up, simply trying to single you out in a group of people, simply trying to make you look like the fool. Don't let him do that, okay? Don't let him see himself wise in his own eyes, okay? Turn it back on him in a kind manner, obviously. Okay, the commentary I read had a little excerpt in there about this, and said, and I don't know if this is actually true, but it said a preacher was asked one time what the name of Jesus' sisters were, okay? He looked at the person and he says, well, go home and read the second chapter of Jude, and then we can discuss it, okay? So the person's trying to get him tripped up, trying to make him look like a clown. So kindly, the preacher replies to go do this. So basically, know your audience here, I guess, is what this is getting at. Verse 6, he who sends a message by the hand of a fool cuts off his own feet and drinks violence. Okay, so in verse 13 of the previous chapter, we talked about a faithful messenger and how he refreshes his master like a cool drink in the heat of summer. Okay, this verse contrasts with a foolish messenger and says that the master might as well cut off his feet and drink poison. Okay, we all know people that they're going to hear things wrong no matter how many times you try to tell them. They're gonna get them incorrect and proclaim them incorrectly. And basically it's saying, don't send a message of high importance by someone who's going to mess it up. Verse 7, like the legs of the lame that hang limp is a proverb in the mouth of fools. So I wrote down here, a fool's mouth is as useless as legs to a paralyzed man. We had a young man that I went to school with. Okay, he was in a wheelchair. Arms as big as my thighs. Okay, I thought, my goodness, how does he get arms that big? He wore shorts one day, and I realized that his legs were about the size of my fingers. And I thought, okay, where we're using our legs to travel around, he has to use his arms. And I just, look at that, and I thank God for all the blessings that he's bestowed on me, and certainly don't deserve any of them, but he's in control. He knows what's best. But my goodness, you see someone like that, and it breaks my heart, even though it hurts me more than it hurts that person, I'm sure. Moving on, verse 8. Like one who binds a stone in a sling is he who gives honor to a fool. So many of us, when we were kids, had slingshots, okay? We shot rocks around, at cans, what have you, maybe at birds. I was never any good at it, okay? I'll admit, I never had a slingshot. I would use buddies, but I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with one. And they couldn't either, even though they had them and used them for years, okay? So what I wrote down here is stones shot from a slingshot are mostly wasted when thinking in terms of killing a dangerous animal. So it's just as wasteful to give honor to a fool. Give honor to someone who's going to appreciate it. A fool isn't going to appreciate it, know what to do with it, and won't be better for it in the end. Okay, verse 9, like a thorn that goes into the hand of a drunkard is a proverb in the mouth of a fool. I try not to surround myself with people that are going to abuse alcohol or really even partake in alcohol at all, to be honest. However, we went to a Ohio State football game last year, and you look hard enough around there, you're going to see people like that. And I don't understand it. I don't understand why you would spend the amount of money that they want to charge for a ticket to not remember a thing about the game, but that was this girl's choice, I guess. Two different outlooks here on this verse. Two different commentaries, kind of similar concepts, I guess, but differing opinions. First one, a fool will tell the proverb wrong, and the point of the proverb, the point of the lesson, won't be any more felt than a thorn being pushed into the hand of a drunkard. Makes sense. This girl was unfortunately falling all over the people in front of her. I think you could have put a thorn in her hand and she wouldn't have had any idea that it was there. The second way that it looked at it was it would be just as dangerous for a drunkard to be carrying around a bundle of thorns, hitting people with it, as a fool carrying around a proverb proclaiming it to others. Basically, what this verse is getting at is, like we talked in similar verses, a fool's mouth is inherently worthless. Okay. Verse 10, the great God who formed everything gives the fool his hire and the transgressor his wages. As a dog returns to his own vomit, so the fool repeats his folly. So this verse is quoted in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 20. There it talks about a backslider returning to his former sins. Here it speaks of a fool returning to his former acts of foolishness. And then verse 12. Do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. So the last, 6 minutes or so, we discussed verses 3 through 11. My quick math would say that would be 9 verses about basically the utter worthlessness of a fool. We see all these illustrations of the worthlessness of this individual in proclaiming a proverb. Here we're told that a man full of conceit, thinking he can do no wrong, full of himself, with much pride, is even more worthless. So let us all take a lesson from that and once again go through this world with humility. Okay, verses 13 through 16 speaks of laziness. 13, the lazy man says, there is a lion in the road, a fierce lion is in the streets. So the lazy guy makes up excuses for not going out to work, okay? I don't want to get eaten by a lion. There may be a lion out there. Well, yeah, there may be, but in this case, that's an excuse for not going and doing your job. 14, as the door turns on its hinges, so does the lazy man on his bed. So he sticks to his bed just like a door does to its hinges. Verse 15, the lazy man buries his head in the bowl. It wearies him to bring it back to his mouth. So a couple weeks ago, John basically, I believe, had this same verse. This guy's so lazy that he puts his hand in the bowl and he won't even bring it back up to his mouth to eat. And then verse 16, the lazy man is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly. So I'm going to go on a slight rant here, and I apologize in advance, but In his own opinion, the lazy man is wiser than 7 wise men. Okay? Unfortunately, in today's world that we live in, there are individuals who, although they've never been in the shoes of a policeman, okay, I was going to waste time on a college athlete and a high school athlete and whatnot, but we don't have time. Okay, so they've never been in the shoes of a policeman, okay, and after the fact, it's very easy to sit back and say, well, this man, I just heard it the other day. Well, they shot a man who all he had was a knife. Folks, listen. Please, all 29 of you, all 3,000 that's at home tuning in to our live broadcast, please, don't ever get yourself in that situation. But if you do, if someone tells you to stop and put your hands up, do it. Obey the law. Obey your parents. Okay, Jeremiah. Obey your parents. Your parents are doing it for a reason. Okay, it's so that you will obey the law one of these days. Someone tells you to do something, do it. He only had a knife in his hand. They have to make split-second decisions. Could a knife in the neck, kill you? Of course it could. So here it is. Lazy people, okay, want to stay at home, okay, and want to question the authority of these people who are doing their best, okay. So in today's society, I wrote down, people question everybody, okay. Everybody's put on a high pedestal, okay, as far as questioning for being human and making a mistake, okay. The problem is those that are questioning them, those that are sitting at home, are too lazy to get out and make their own mistakes. It's going to happen. So I can see I've already spent 3 minutes on it, so I'm going to end it there. But anyways, don't be lazy and try your best to understand other people's point of view and don't judge people for being human. Don't judge people for trying to do their jobs and protecting us. Verse 17, he who passes by and meddles in a quarrel not his own is like one who takes the dog by the ears. Don't get in other people's business. Okay, you see a couple of people that you see a man that's forcibly taking action upon a woman, jump in and help. You see a husband and wife that are arguing over something at dinner when you're out to eat. It's not your business to get in the middle of it. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be able to handle it on themselves way better than if you get in the middle of it. 20 through 22 talks about gossip. Where there is no wood, the fire goes out, and where there is no talebearer, strife ceases. As charcoal is to burning coals, and wood to fire, so is a contentious man to kindle strife. So fire goes out when there's no fuel, when there's no wood. Just like tension's going to disappear when the gossip stops. Verse 22, the words of a talebearer are like tasty trifles, and they go down into the inmost body. I put here, like a dessert, we may be tempted to hear the words of a gossiper and want to hear more, but they're no more good for us than what that dessert's going to be, to our body and to our physical well-being. Okay, in verses 23 through 26, fervent lips with a wicked heart are like earthenware covered with silver dross. He who hates disguises it with his lips and lays up deceit within himself. When he speaks kindly, do not believe him. For there are 7 abominations in his heart. Though his hatred is covered by deceit, his wickedness will be revealed before the assembly. I don't know if there's anyone, I'd say there might be a few here that's maybe the couple in the crow's nest that's seen the movie Mean Girls. Okay, we had to watch this. John's giving me a thumbs up and laughing. We had to watch this, I countless times in school. Basically, to set the scene, four girls can't get along with each other, talk pretty to each other's faces, and then behind their backs totally destroy one another. So I guess that's what I thought of when I heard these verses. So don't believe someone who has kind words, but's gonna basically put you down behind their back. Okay, 27 and 28, whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and he who rolls a stone will have it roll back on him. A lying tongue hates those who are crushed by it, and a flattering mouth works ruin. And I'm not going to speak on those because the clock is ticking. Chapter 27, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth. The only thing I thought of when I read that verse was Roger, and he says all the time, Lord willing, and that in this time we certainly have to appreciate that statement, and none of us ever know what tomorrow holds. God's the only one that does, and that's what I have for that verse. Next one, number 2, let another man praise you, and not your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips. I wrote here, don't toot your own horn. People are much more likely to believe in others' opinion of you than your own. Okay, I went fishing with a guy, I don't know, about a month ago, I guess at this point, on Columbus Day. I thought there was no place that I should rather be than on the water on Christopher Columbus Day. So we got off work, and that's where I go every year, just to remember Christopher, and also because I like to fish. But I went with a guy who, Marge, golfs with Russ and with Earl, and we all know that they're good golfers. Roger said it. All kinds of people have said it, okay? But this man told me, he says, you go to church with Russ and Earl, don't you? And I said, yeah. He says, my goodness, they're both good golfers. And I said, well, I knew they were. Never heard either one of them brag about how their golf game is. Okay, you wouldn't know it by talking to them. And that's how we should be. Let someone else sing your praises, okay? Because unfortunately, we had a golfer that earlier this year wanted to tell us how good he was, and wanted to tell us how he had these nice clubs, and he even had an umbrella to keep him dry in the rain, and the umbrella was about that big around, but it was going to keep his golf bag dry. And anyways, a fool, I guess, would be the best way to describe him. Okay. Don't think he remembered us. A couple weeks later, he showed up. We was on the first tee. I said, hey, that's the guy that he has $1,000 set of golf clubs. He knows what he's doing. I said, go ahead and play through, bud. My goodness, he was worse than either one of us. And so let someone else give their opinion of you. Don't give your own, because you're just going to be made out to look like a clown in the end. Verse 3, a stone is heavy and sand is weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than both of them. I thought of the Smiths when I read this verse. Working with concrete, not an easy job, okay? You watch someone who knows what they're doing, they make it look easy. You do it by yourself or with someone who has no clue what they're doing, and you'll learn real quickly that it's not. So it takes things out of you physically, okay? Especially, like I say, if I was to try it on my own, it would not turn out well. But it takes stuff out of you physically, okay? And being around a fool when he or she's angry, okay, full of wrath, as it says here, is more exhausting. I don't watch this junk, okay, but I think anybody that's flipped through the channels has seen different reality shows, and they have people on there that just, for lack of better terms, just don't know when to shut up, and treat each other horribly, and just fighting the whole time. and you almost had to stop on it and watch it for like 30 seconds, and that's as much as I can take. And and it just wears you out. I mean, you turn the channel, and it's like you have to take a deep breath to calm yourself back down after watching that stuff. It just, so the wrath of a fool can be even more exhausting than hard work. That's what this verse is getting at. Verse 4, wrath is cruel and anger a torrent, but who is able to stand before jealousy? So put here that jealousy is more dangerous and cruel than anger. Okay, anger may arise, but then it's going to subside. Okay, jealousy is never going to go anywhere. Someone who's jealous is going to be jealous 24/7. Okay, someone who's angry isn't going to be angry all the time. It's eventually going to go away, and they're going to be happy. But jealousy's way worse because it's never going to go anywhere. Verses 5 and 6, open rebuke is better than love carefully concealed. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Okay, so I put here, it's better to rebuke / correct someone out of love than to pretend you love someone without correcting them and ultimately allow them to continue on the path to ruin. Time will often open people's eyes to discover their true friends are the ones who corrected them, not the ones who, quote-unquote, accepted their mistakes. I think of a teenager here. Teenagers have the reputation, probably much deserved, of not feeling that their parents know anything, okay? Or at least not nearly as much as them. And I've seen teenagers that come to school and, you're not going to believe what my parents, blah, 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 okay? And they have friends that, yeah, you're right. Yeah, your parents are horrible. You know, they validate them. Okay, they go along with them, and yeah, and then they feed off each other, and then we hate the parents because, well, Susie or Johnny at school says that that's okay, and you know, their parents let them do it. And once again, children, obey your parents. They know what they're talking about. Okay, you'll realize that sometime, hopefully. And then you'll realize that they care way more about you by trying to correct you than what your friends do by trying to validate you. Okay, verse 9. I guess I didn't have anything to say about 7 and 8. Okay, verse 9. Ointment and perfume delight the heart, and the sweetness of a man's friend gives delight by hearty counsel. Okay, ointment and perfume delight. I think of, we were just there today, actually. Went to a few craft stores, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but you walk in a craft store and you're almost instantly comforted by the smell of the candles or whatever they're burning. I mean, every craft store smells the same, except for the antique store we went in today that had a rotting pumpkin in a wheelbarrow on display, which smelled horrible, and then we figured out why. But anyways, it just seems like every craft store has that welcoming, and just like you're welcomed and I guess calmed by that scent, that's how one feels one should feel when he receives the advice of a true friend. Okay. My clock is spot on. I was hoping it was a couple minutes fast. I'm going to continue to read. We're going to skip some comments here. Verse 10, do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, nor go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. My son, be wise and make my heart glad, that I may answer to him who reproaches me. A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself. A simple pass on and are punished. Take the garment of him who is surety for a stranger, and hold it in pledge when he is surety for a seductress. He who blesses his friend with a loud voice rising early in the morning, it will be counted a curse to him. I like this verse, okay? What they're talking about here. So Someone comes in early in the morning, others are sleeping, okay, and they come with a loud voice and really let everyone know with that loud voice that I'm here for my friend, okay? And they're not there for their friend, they're there for recognition. They want everyone else to know that they're there, okay? And I was nearby a fundraiser one time. Had a fellow that I knew who inherently, I guess, would you would say wanted to impress one of the ladies that was there. So the lady was over here talking to someone else, and he made it very well known that as he put his $2 in the collection bin for this very worthy cause, that I'm making a very healthy donation here, okay, so that this person don't do that, okay? Don't brag in what you do. Don't do it out of love. Do it in secret. Do it to receive your your glory in heaven someday. A continual dripping on a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike. Whoever restrains her restrains the wind and grasps oil with his right hand. As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Whoever keeps a fig tree will eat its fruit, so he who waits on the master will be honored. As in the water's face reflects face, so a man's heart reveals the man. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of the man are never satisfied. The refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, and a man is valued by what others say of him. Okay, I like that verse. This is the last one I'm going to talk about. So this refining pot and the furnace for silver, okay, to make silver and gold, you had to take something, and Dennis could probably explain this way better than me, but you had to take something and melt the impurities away from it, okay? And what this verse is saying is as these refining pot and furnace do these things and bring out the impurities and leave you with something beautiful, similarly, public opinion will reveal the true colors of a man, okay? So you listen to public opinion, that's gonna validate somebody. That's going to refine them, melt them, bring all the impurities out into the open. Okay, and then I will just read 22 through the rest of the chapter. Though you grind a fool in a mortar with a pestle along with crushed grain, yet his foolishness will not depart from him. Be diligent to know the state of your flocks, and attend to your herds, for riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations. When the hay is removed and the tender grass shows itself, and the herbs of the mountain are gathered in, the lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of a field. You shall have enough goats' milk for your food, for the food of your household, and the nourishment of your maidservants. Okay. That took a tick longer than I had hoped. We didn't get through everything, but I hope it was beneficial. I hope we can learn something from this wonderful book. You could take a couple verses and make an entire evening out of this. And Roger, don't take that as an invitation for me to do that in any more Sunday evenings. I shouldn't have mentioned that, but anyways, I certainly appreciate everyone who was able to come out this evening. Appreciate everyone who's going to listen online. Hopefully it was worthwhile. Everyone stay well, and for anyone who's here this evening, if there's anything that we can do to get you started on the path to heaven or get you back on that path, please come forward as we stand and sing the invitation.